How to complete a risk register. To demonstrate the completion of a risk register, we will use the following example. Your business sponsors the local football team who are competing in a Premier Grade rugby union competition. To celebrate the end of season, you have been asked to host a traditional Mad Monday dinner and a presentation event. Your event coordinator has pitched the following idea. The dinner would be held in a private function space in the format of a dinner, 2-course sit-down or substantial finger food. There will be beer and wine provided for 80 players, coaches and supporters, and entertainment comprising of a roast-style awards ceremony and a guest comedian. The event would run from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. Before you take on the event, you decide to complete a risk register. A risk register identifies the possible risks within your business, records them, and manages them. Here's an example of an empty risk register. The risk management process is made up of 4 steps. Step 1, identify your risks. Step 2, assess risks. Step 3, control risks. Step 4, monitor and review your risk management. Step 1, identify risks. What could go wrong with this event? Let's have a look at a couple of things that pose serious risks to the business. Customers become intoxicated. Customers become aggressive or antisocial. Minors consume alcohol. Step 2, assess risks. Separate your high risks from your low risks. This is a 2-step process. The first step is to determine the impact of a risk. What is the consequence of a risk? An extreme risk is where you have failure of business through financial loss or regulatory action, death, severe reputational risk, all the way down to an insignificant risk, which is minimal impact on business, no injuries, and minimal reputational sensitivity. After you determine the impact, you need to determine the likelihood of the particular risk happening. It occurs often. It will generally occur at least once a year and potentially more often, all the way down to being rare, where it only occurs in highly exceptional circumstances. That's less than a 50% chance in any 20-year period. A risk matrix like the one below makes it easier for you to determine the risk levels. For example, if an event has a very high impact, that means death or loss of business, and it's almost certain to happen, it has a risk rating of very high. That means that a lot of your resources should be allocated to reducing that risk. Now let's look at one of the risks we identified earlier on with hosting this Mad Monday event. Customers become intoxicated. What would the impact of that be? The likelihood is that it's very high. It's probably going to happen. Someone's going to become intoxicated. But what would the impact be? The impact would be injury to customers and staff, financial loss from fines or court action, and we could be subject to regulatory action, new licence conditions, or part of a regulatory scheme, all of which adds more costs to the business. Therefore, the impact is major, the likelihood is likely, making the rating high. Step 3, control the risks. Controls are things that you can do to eliminate or reduce the risk. So the controls. You decide to proceed with a Mad Monday event. You identified the risk you face hosting this event. What strategies and controls can you implement to minimize or eliminate the risks? Step 4, monitor and review. Did you implement the controls you identified in step 3? Are they working? Here is a completed risk register. So you can see we've got under risk, customers become intoxicated. We've got the impact is major, the likelihood is likely, the rating is high. Here are a list of our controls, our strategies that we can implement to try to reduce some of this risk. But what about residual risk, risk owner, and time frame? What do they mean? Residual risk. A risk can never be eliminated. Residual risk is the amount of risk remaining after inherent controls have been reduced by risk controls. That means you can put all the controls in place you like, but that risk is still there. That is your residual risk. You can reduce it, but it's still there. The risk owner. The risk owner is the individual who is ultimately accountable for ensuring the risk is managed appropriately. The licensee, the owner, the manager, or the duty manager. The time frame. Risk time frame refers to the time during which a risk, if it occurs, will impact the project. Here's that completed risk register again. You can see that we've identified the risk as the customer is becoming intoxicated. We have the impact as major. We have the likelihood is likely, giving us a rating of high. We've got some actions that we've determined will help us to reduce the chance of people becoming intoxicated. So looking at our residual risk then, after we've implemented our controls, the impact of people becoming intoxicated is still major. We're still subject to fines and maybe court action and maybe regulatory action. However, we can reduce the likelihood of people becoming intoxicated, bringing our risk rating down to medium. So our residual risk is medium. The risk owner, who's responsible for this? We've got the club manager and the licensee. And our time frame is 2 weeks prior to the event and during the event. So thank you for watching and good luck with your risk management.